So one of the things that the authors suggested in the info tablet up here was, what could you do? What could you do to extend the model? Yeah, we could change the number of turtles. Maybe a larger economy, this would work better. We could go ahead and do that. But maybe I thought maybe I could check this. Change the rules so that agents could go into debt. So we have lots of debt in our particular system. We have folks who take out loans for lots of things. I'm talking to a bunch of college students. Maybe there's a couple of you who have taken out college debt. Maybe we take out debt to finance a house or finance a car or finance whatever. We have credit cards. So maybe it'd be cool to see what would happen if we added debt to into this system. And again, we're not plugging in a bunch of things. There's interest on the debt, or you have to pay it back, or you have to find that. Those are lovely things, and I hope somebody whose research it is to make a very, very accurate economic model would do just that. All we're going to do is we're going to allow our turtles to go into debt. So here's what we're going to do, and this is how I propose to do it. I'm going to go over here to the code, and you notice over here, in order for our turtles to go into debt, they have to, or rather to transact. I was in the wrong place. This is the transaction up here to go. So this is in order to live life, you have to pay $1. Maybe you're just buying food for that day. Maybe in this little tiny world it costs $1 to buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe you need to spend $1 for transportation. Maybe you need to spend $1 for your cell phone. Maybe you need to spend $1 for education, whatever. But unfortunately, in this model, any turtle that goes bankrupt, any turtle that gave away $1 and didn't randomly earn money back, they're out of the game. They can't play. So maybe it would make more sense if we can allow the turtles, if they have no money, they can borrow money, and then they could, buy what they need to do. And now that they're back into the economic, environment, maybe by chance their luck will change and they'll get some money back. So what I want to do is I want to change this turtles with wealth greater than 0. I'm going to change this to wealth greater than -100. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this now allows, because down here under transaction, we take the turtle's wealth and we subtract it by 1, because in order to play the game, each tick or each day, they have to pay $1. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow these turtles to go into debt. We're going to allow them to go into as deep as -100. Now, we could make it more than you want, but remember, we started out our little world with everybody having $100, so it just sort of made sense to make the maximum amount of debt be -100. The only thing we need to do down here is to make sure this works. Well, it doesn't crash the computer, but let's just go ahead and do this. I'm gonna set this up, and we're gonna go ahead and we're going to go, and it's going to go pretty fast. And notice there's some people over here. So I said people, and there it went. It didn't crash, but it stopped. It said, oh, by the way, it can't move the turtle beyond the world's edge. So I'm going to dismiss this, and didn't take long. This little turtle up here, if you can see it, they have $1, and then it looks as if they paid $1 and went to 0, and then they were allowed to go in debt, and they went to -1. And this world has 0 is the minimum and 500 is the maximum. And we already have some code, or they already have some code in here that says, ask the turtles if the wealth is less than or equal to the max coordinate, then go ahead and plot them at that particular wealth coordinate. But the problem is we have to also have to make sure that they're not minimum below 0. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and see. We have to say if the wealth is less than or equal to, and at the same time, that's and with an M, and at the same time, we have to make sure that the wealth is greater than or equal to the min P X coordinate, COR, for the individual, for the patch coordinate, meaning what patch of grass are they standing on inside the world. So all I've done is I added this add and wealth to make sure that both is correct, that they're somewhere on the playing field. If they're on the playing field, then they get plotted. If not, then they stay where they were before. They're just going to line up at 0 if they go too low, and they're just going to line up at 500 if they go too high. So I'm going to press the check button, and now there's no errors. I'm going to go back to interface. I'm going to set this guy up again. I'm going to go, And now I hope that I programmed it. I just changed some code to make sure that they're not zero. And all of a sudden, you'll see that we're going to get a few turtles that are now lined up on this zero. And that tells me that they are in debt. Now, the problem with being in debt is they had to borrow money. For all intents and purposes, they borrowed money to go ahead and pay the people who, give money to people who had money. And you'll notice that way out here, these very wealthy turtles over here, now they actually have extra money to play with. So now, before, when I said the total wealth was 50,000, the total wealth is actually 100,000 now, because every turtle is given $100 to start, but they can go ahead and go negative, which means that they can go ahead and borrow $100. So they have $100 to start, but they can kick in money by borrowing debt and getting an obligation. So now we have something that we didn't see before. Very quickly, we have a whole bunch of folks in debt on this side because it didn't exist before. But now we have at least one turtle that's even more wealthy than 500. Now we have two. For a while there, two that are very close to being. Now we have three. It turns out that, again, we didn't solve this issue of the top 50% is getting richer and the bottom is getting legger. But, oh, by the way, we didn't do anything. We made it worse. Look at this guy. The wealth of the bottom 50% is now negative 2,000. So the wealth of half of our world, of the residents of our world, the agents of the world, are in debt. They have no wealth. And notice that the wealth of the top 50% is now 53,000 because, again, the total wealth is no longer 50,000. If I stop this and double click this guy here, if I edit this guy, it's no longer 50,000, it's 100,000 because as I've entered in some I'm going to keep on going. So now the total wealth of the system, I've added some wealth of the system by making debt available. I'm not sure who loaned this money to the turtles. Maybe it was, again, if you make a system, maybe some of these wealthy turtles happen to be bankers and they loan some of their money to the turtles that are down here. That would keep it in the system, but maybe they go outside the economy. Maybe they get loans from bankers outside of this little world. And yes, as we're very, very close to the election, so yeah, you can draw parallels that maybe the economists are playing with agent-based models. But again, using this agent-based models and these agents, I think it's really kind of fascinating that we can answer some of these questions and say, well, what would be a good amount of debt? What would be a good way to service the debt? How should we pay that back? What's the interest rate? Where do we get the money? Do we just print? I mean, I went from $50,000 here to $100,000. Where did that extra $100,000 come from? Did I just print more money? But look, if you look at the shape of this wealth by percent, the top 50% is really taking off. They have lots of money. They're doing great. And it looks as if the bottom 50% are getting really, really, really in debt. It looks like adding debt didn't solve anything. It may have made the system worse. Okay? Wow.